we're gonna do one on identity shifting. I've not done one on identity for a while, so just thought I'd fire a quick live to talk about it and explore what identity shifting is and how much we can do of it, because sorry, just adjusting my mic. Identity shifting is about like massive change at the highest level. Think about an identity. It's like, I've talked about this a lot in my videos. Identity is almost like your highest level affirmation. It's who you see yourself as. You know, if somebody says, "Who are you?" And you were to describe that in a couple of sentences, what would it be? You know, that summary. It's like the executive summary. It's not your job. It's not, you know, where you live, anything like that. It's kind of like who you are as an individual, and it's kind of egoic. So you've got to be, you know, careful, because identity can be quite a dangerous thing. You can get attached to the wrong one. And I've been kind of battling with this myself, because I've talked about a lot of it in my videos. I put it into the journal, you know, it's a big section, the Journal for Goal Achievement. I've got a whole section on creating your identity here, which is, you know, what I say it is. Even in the introduction, I think I mentioned identity. Our identity is not determined by our goals we achieve, but the habits we practice daily. This is another important thing about identity. We are the sum of our daily habits, right? Despite what we think. So you've got to understand the relationship between what you do on a day-to-day basis and what your identity is. So however you see yourself, you have to live in accordance to that identity. If you don't, if you say, "Oh, I'm this," you know, I don't know, I'm going to make something up now. Let's say you say, "Oh, I'm a fantastic, I don't know, I'm a fantastic athlete," right? And then in your real world, you eat chips and burgers all the time and sit on the sofa watching Netflix, right? How you live your life and what you tell yourself, your identity, are not in alignment there. So what will actually happen is your habits will confirm something else. So you have to make sure that your identity is in alignment with how you live your life on a day-to-day basis. The other thing is, if you have a negative identity, like negative self-talk, negative self-belief, that can also force how, it's really strange, because that will then impact on what you do and how you think about yourself. You'll almost like manifest that, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So identity is really important, and that's why I put it at the very, very, how are you? I'm very good, thank you. So that's why I put it at the start of the journal, because at the very top, I've got this here now. You probably have to screenshot, and that you can go on my on the journal website and see this. You'll have to mirror that, but it's called the identity evolution cycle. And at the top, you've got your identity, and in the middle, you've got goals, or like projects, things that you're going to work on. This is like breaking your identity down into a set of almost like results and action plans. And then you've got your daily journal, which is like where you practice your daily habits and you document your daily habits. And the idea being is, you know, all big results and even your identity is confirmed in what you do daily in small increments. So those little things that you do every day, the consistent things that you do every day, end up confirming your identity, right? So if you want to shift it, the idea, the way it works, this identity evolution cycle is, you can feed a new identity in at the top, right? And then filter it through so that your daily habits are confirming that identity. And once those daily habits are in alignment with that identity, they will actually confirm it. And this is how you make meaningful change. And you might think, well, how radical could you go with an identity shift? You ever thought about that? Like, you know, how radical, because big change takes time and it takes consistency. So it's not like, I know that one day, there's certain examples, like, let's say you wanted to, you smoked and you wanted to quit smoking, right? Or you drank and you wanted to quit drinking. It's quite feasible to create a new identity for yourself to say, today I am now a person who doesn't smoke or who doesn't drink, right? Literally just create that new identity, just say, this is me, and then just stop drinking or stop smoking. That is, you can imagine that being quite doable, right? But you're doing it, obviously there's going to be a heck of a lot of resistance and pain to that, right? So you can do that, you know, if you just want to say, right, today I'm going to stop smoking, and you just stop. But you're going to be met with like an absolute wall of pain, particularly if, because any meaningful change is like changing habits. It's similar to changing addictions. You're going to be met with a shit ton of resistance straight away, right? So how do you get through that? Well, that's where consistency comes in. So even though you can feed in that new identity at the top and then start, you know, create some plans around it, your goals, like your results, and then start working towards it each day in your day-to-day actions and your habits, your rituals, routines and habits. And this is why I use a journal, because I document everything that I do, and then you can see that gradual change. As long as you keep doing that every day for, I don't know, a few months, you'll reinforce that habit and you will confirm your identity. All right. And in my opinion, this is where your goals should help you get there, you know, the goals that you create. You want to understand that massive change takes time. So you're going to do it in increments. You might have to do several cycles, right? But one of the things that you know when you go for a big identity shift, let's say, I don't know, another one like, yeah, something like that, like you're going to quit drinking, or you know, you know you've got a drink problem, you're always going out at the weekends, getting smashed, and you just had it, you want to change your life, you want to say, you know what, I'm not going to drink anymore. Or, you know, maybe you're overweight and you go, right, sod this, that's it, I'm going to sort myself out, I'm fed up with this. Or maybe you're like, you're fed up with your job, or you're out of work or whatever, and you just had enough, right? So you're going to hit that point where you're just like, you know what, I'm absolutely fed up, I'm going to make this big change. At that point, creating that new identity, right? What I've wrote down here now, forging a new radical path where your identity is so different to what you've known, right? It's going to feel unknown. It's going to feel totally new, like you're walking a completely different path. And to be fair, that's how you'll know that it's radical enough. Because if it doesn't feel strange and unknown, and you're not met with like a shit ton of resistance, then you're not pushing yourself, are you? Right? Say hi. Hi. So that's, you know, one of the things that, how do you know that it's radical and it's a massive identity shift, is when it feels so unknown and so alien, and there's a lot of resistance. And that might be, you feel nervous, you feel like you're exposed. And I think that's a good thing, you know, being bold like that. There's a great quote in here. I stole it out of this book, you know, the Jim Quick's book, Limitless. Pretty good book, actually. You'll have to mirror that, but yeah, it's a decent book, actually. This is, you might have seen him on YouTube, Jim Quick. The boy with a broken brain, you know. He's pretty good. But in there, I nicked this quote out of it, put it in the journal. You have limitless identities. Once you get to the next level, there is another level and another level. And this is the point, you know, with the identity evolution cycle. You can keep cycling. All you have to do is make sure that the new identity shift that you give yourself is eventually confirmed by the daily habits that you do daily. And then that will confirm the new identity. And you just keep going, keep going, keep going, you know. And there might be levels to it. Like, you know what I mean? Because you might have this is the difference between identity and a vision. You might have a vision to say, I want to create a big empire or whatever, like a massive business empire, or I'm going to be really successful, I'm going to live in this amazing house or whatever, right? We all think that, right, from kids, you know, and that's good. But one of the exercises in the journal is to actually, there's quite a few good exercises. One of the ones is to actually tease out how you currently see yourself. So no matter what you think your identity is, right, you've got this section like, how do I see myself? Where you've got to be vulnerable and just be honest. You know, you can have identity of this like really successful business owner with this nice house. But if that's not really the case, then you've got to be honest first, how I see myself. And then you write down like your areas of strength, areas of weakness, right? And then what you're actually doing with this, you're being honest with yourself, and then you're looking at like your personal vision, your professional vision, and it guides you through it. And then eventually you create a new identity statement that is applicable to where you currently are. And that might not be quite the ultimate vision that you have for your life. You know what I mean? Because you might need to do it in several iterations. These last 6 months, so it's like, okay, for this 6 months, what's my identity? And then you re-go over it. There's actually a download of this diagram on the Goal Achievement Hub website, just in PDF, that you can sort of download and then just fill in the identity evolution cycle. But you can keep going over it. And this is like, in my experience, this is a good model for identity shifting. And it really works. So there's like two parts to it. Yeah, you've got to create yourself an identity, but you've also got to really push yourself forward through the pain barrier of change. Because what you're doing is forging new habits. Obviously, there's more than identity. You then create some goals, and when, you know, to create your goals, you're doing this thing first, which is called the life harmony model, where you're looking at, like, you're just sort of scoring yourself in areas, and you're looking at where you're kind of weak, just to drive ideas of where you can improve. But then obviously the nuts and bolts of it is this stuff. It's just, you know, your daily journaling, where you're documenting those little subtle changes each day. And the great thing is, once I've been using journals for years, and the great thing is you can read back. I keep them all, and I'll look at my old journals from years ago, and the growth, you know, that you can see, all the bad habits that I was cutting out, and how much better I've got. I'm more efficient at things like training, diet, all that kind of thing. Obviously launching new businesses. And all of that is just from following that identity evolution cycle. It's like, right, okay, this 6 months, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to do this, right? Let's give myself a new identity for it. Let's create some goals. And then let's start practicing, journaling and practicing those daily habits every day, you know? And it eventually gets confirmed. And then the next one, you get another one. You just keep going and going and going. And I can read them back for years, you know, and see that kind of growth. There's a correction bit at the bottom, but in my experience, that's how it works. That's how identity shifting works. There is a sort of mental side to it, where you can just say to yourself, okay, I'm now this person, and that is true. But unless you back it up with small daily habits and actions that are in alignment, it's like when I was having my coaching with Scott. I remember I was going through a problem in terms of getting big contracts for my tech business, and I was telling him, I'm only getting these smaller, I want the big projects, I'm only getting the small ones. And I know some of this is business maturity, you know, businesses mature over time, but I was only getting smaller contracts. I said, how can I get them? And he said, well, I think, he said, it's an identity problem. He said, that you deserve these contracts. Like, have you got the skills? And I said, yeah, of course I have. No doubt. Never had any doubt in my ability. Okay. And so you can do it. Yeah. Okay. So it's an identity problem. Just you need to. What does that person that gets the bigger contracts, that business owner that gets the bigger contracts, that's more successful than you, what do they do on a day-to-day basis? And he sort of went, he said, what would they do? How would they behave? How would they kind of show up in the morning? Well, they'd always get up early, they'd always eat well, they'd always train, they'd always journal, they'd always be ready for work, you know what I mean? They'd always write down what are the top 3 things that I'm going to do today and make sure they do them. They do that consistently. And you know what? A light bulb went off. I just started doing that. And then guess what? You know, a year or 2 later, I started getting the bigger contract. It was amazing, right? And I thought, shit, a lot of this is sort of self-belief, right? Just giving yourself that identity, like telling yourself that you are that person. A lot of it's that. But the other side to it is, and what that does initially is bring that initial pain. But then after that, or along with that, you have to do the small daily actions. So that's it. The identity evolution cycle. That is it. Feed in a new identity at the top. Create some goals and work towards them every day in your daily rituals, routines, and habits. Make sure what you do on a day-to-day basis, the little small things of consistency, are in alignment with that new identity, and it will confirm that identity. And that's it. All right. Go and have a look at it. Yeah. I put a link down below. You can have a look on the website and go and look at the identity evolution cycle. All right. Take it easy and see you all next time.